My name is Lena Carter, and I'm a 30-year-old founder of a company no one thought would survive. 3 years ago, I sat in my tiny apartment, staring at a sketchpad full of scribbles and hope. I'd dreamed up a business, Verdant, a home delivery service for locally sourced organic food. It was born from memories of late-night shifts, sore feet, and the quiet need for something meaningful. Before I take you deeper into how it all unraveled, how betrayal turned into fire and doubt became an empire, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this with someone who's been underestimated, and subscribe if you've ever been told your dream was too risky. Because this story, it's for every underdog who's ready to stop asking for permission. I poured every bit of courage I had into a pitch and brought it to the two people I trusted most, my parents. I asked them for $10,000 to get it started. Their response was flat and cold: no. Too risky. Try something more stable. But 2 months later they gave my sister, Sienna, the golden child, a jaw-dropping $100,000 to launch a luxury fashion brand. He was hailed as a visionary. I was just the girl with jars of jam and dirt under her nails. Her business failed spectacularly while mine soared. And when Verdant crossed 7 figures, they came back with open arms, claiming our success. They wanted a piece. That night I opened our family chat and typed one word: buy. And I meant it. People see the success now, the headlines, the partnerships, the polished branding. But they didn't see the shadows I grew up in. I was raised in the quiet neighborhoods outside Maple Falls, a leafy, slow-moving town where the sidewalks cracked under the weight of silence. I was the second daughter, the afterthought. Sienna was 3 years older, a prodigy by every family standard. Top of her class, piano recitals that made my mother cry, debate trophies lined up on the mantle like medals of war. Me. I was the kid with dirt on her jeans, scraping mud off her boots before dinner. I liked planting things, making things, real things. At 12, I started picking wild berries behind our neighbor's fence and turning them into jam. I'd sell them at the Sunday farmer's market, just a card table and a crooked handwritten sign: Lena's Naturals, $3 per jar. People stopped. They smiled. They bought every jar. I'd come home beaming, $20 richer and full of dreams. But my mother barely looked up. Lena, stop with the silly hobbies. And my father? Just a grunt: you need real goals. Meanwhile, Sienna got a standing ovation for joining the drama club. The divide only grew with time. Sienna was sent to St. Aurelia's, an elite private college in New York where the tuition alone could have fed a family for a year. Full ride, courtesy of our parents. Dorm fees, books, even a clothing stipend. I remember overhearing my dad at dinner one night, his voice swelling with pride: that girl's going to own the world one day. I, on the other hand, enrolled at Riverside State, a public university just 15 minutes from home. No support. Not a dollar. I worked nights at a greasy diner, the kind with sticky menus and flickering neon lights, just to scrape enough together for my textbooks. Still, I clung to my dream. I'd sneak fresh fruit from the farmer's market and experiment in my dorm's tiny shared kitchen, trying new jam recipes late into the night. Strawberry basil. Blueberry ginger. My roommates hated the mess, but I didn't care. One afternoon my mom dropped by unannounced. I was elbow deep in a batch of peach preserves. She looked around, her face wrinkling like she'd smelled something foul. "Lena," she sighed, "you're wasting your time." Meanwhile, Sienna was studying business. She was the future. I was the hobby. The comparisons became unbearable. At family gatherings, I was the background noise to Sienna's spotlight. My parents would beam while she showed off her polished presentations, her mood boards for future collections, her high-heeled visions of success. No one asked about my jam stand or the volunteer hours I clocked at the local greenhouse. No one cared. Except for one person. Grandma Elsie. She saw me. At 78 she was sharp as ever, her hands calloused from years of gardening and quilting, her heart as steady as her sewing machine. Whenever I'd come home with jam money, she'd smile and press a $10 bill into my palm. "You've got something they'll never understand, Lena," she'd whisper. "Don't let them take it from you." Her words were my anchor. I'd lie awake at night hearing my mother's cutting remarks, my father's silence, Sienna's smug laughter echoing in my head. I'd think of Grandma's hands, weathered but firm, planting roots in stubborn soil. I wasn't just chasing a business idea. I was chasing a sense of worth no one had ever handed me. And I was tired of being invisible. By my final year at Riverside, something inside me hardened. I'd spent too long shrinking myself to fit a family mold I never chose. I graduated with a degree in environmental science, every class paid for through sweat and late shifts. Sienna returned from New York with a grand announcement. She was launching a high-end lifestyle label called More Halcyon, all silk, champagne, and socialites. My parents were ecstatic. They practically rolled out a red carpet for her, planning the investment before she finished her sentence. I sat across from them that night, quietly pitching my dream, an organic food delivery service for working families. My father waved it off before I even got to the numbers. "That's not a real job, Lena." And my mother? He smiled sweetly, cruelly. "Your sister's the one with business sense." I swallowed my pride and kept my mouth shut, but inside I was on fire. I wasn't competing with Sienna anymore. I was breaking free from the lie that she was the only one worth believing in. And I had a secret. I'd already started testing the idea. Quietly. On my own. All I needed was someone, anyone, to believe in me. After graduation, I took a job at a tiny organic market in downtown Maple Falls. Willow and thyme. It wasn't glamorous. I stocked produce, mopped aisles, rang up customers. But I loved it. There was something sacred about shelves lined with fresh kale, glistening apples, and hand-labeled jars of honey. And more than that, I listened. Customers, mostly tired parents and busy professionals, would vent while checking out. "I wish someone could just bring this stuff to my door." That's when the idea stopped being a dream. It became a solution. A gap I could fill. A service people needed. I started sketching a rough model in a worn notebook during slow shifts. Local farms, subscription boxes, home delivery. Simple, sustainable, personal. I called it Verdant Rise. One afternoon, my manager, Dana Whitaker, caught me scribbling in the break room. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and kind but blunt when needed. She leaned over my shoulder and asked, "What's this?" I froze, ready for a lecture. Instead, she read every page and looked up with a small, thoughtful smile. "You might be onto something, Lena." Her words lit a fire in me. For the first time, someone saw me. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up mapping delivery routes with a borrowed map of the county, calculating distances, fuel costs, packaging. I made spreadsheets I barely knew how to format and Googled everything I didn't understand. I was building a business on determination and duct tape, and every cell in my body buzzed with possibility. A week later, Dana handed me a slip of paper. "Call this guy," she said. "Owns a small farm outside town. If you're serious, he might help." His name was Harlan Grant, and he became my first supplier. He agreed to provide seasonal produce at cost, just to help me test the model. It was all falling into place. All I needed now was startup capital. I calculated that $10,000 could cover a basic website, a used delivery van, and enough packaging materials for the first few months. I swallowed my pride and asked my parents to meet for coffee. I rehearsed my pitch 100 times, my voice shaking as I slid my printed business plan across the table. I showed them numbers, market trends, testimonials from customers I'd already surveyed. But my dad didn't even look. "Too risky," he said flatly. My mom didn't blink. "You're not cut out for this." I left that cafe with my hands shaking and a hollow pit in my stomach. They hadn't just said no, they had dismissed me entirely. Like I was a child playing business. The next day, I found out they'd given Sienna a $100,000 check for her fashion startup. She was launching More Halcyon with a rented loft in the city, a full-time staff, and a creative director flown in from Paris. They called her idea a once-in-a-generation brand. A hobby. An inconvenience. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I worked. I picked up extra shifts. I moved into a rundown studio apartment where the faucet dripped and the windows rattled in the wind. I canceled my internet, sold my bike, skipped meals. Every dollar went into a savings account labeled Verdant Rise. Dana saw the changes, how thin I looked, how tired I was, but she never pitied me. One night after closing, she handed me a leftover sandwich and said, "Don't let their blind spots block your vision. You're building something real." And I was. No parents. No investors. Just me, a dream, and the quiet rage that came from being underestimated my whole life. Thanksgiving came, and with it the kind of family gathering that looked warm from the outside but felt like frost under the skin. I brought a friend, Tori Hale, from work. She ran a competing organic co-op but had always seemed curious about my plans. I figured she'd be a buffer, someone neutral. The house smelled like sage stuffing and cinnamon pie, but the air was stiff with tension I'd grown used to. As everyone sat down to eat, Sienna stood, glass in hand, and with a radiant smile declared, "I'm proud to announce Noor Halcyon is officially launching this January." Cheers erupted. My mother wiped away tears. My father raised his glass and said, This is the future of our family." Then came the gut punch. They were investing another $100,000 to scale her business. My fork paused midair. Sienna began describing her premium delivery model. Exclusive service, high-end packaging, direct-to-client shipments. It sounded eerily familiar. As it was. She'd stolen the idea. My idea. I had shared every detail with her over coffee months ago. She had nodded, taken notes, even asked follow-up questions. Now she was pitching it. Dressed in silk. Swapping produce for perfumes. And everyone clapped. I sat frozen, heart pounding in my ears, while the room buzzed with praise. Sienna laid out her grand plan. Pop-up boutiques, curated wellness boxes, limited edition drops. It was everything I had built on paper, just wrapped in satin and sold as luxury. I turned to Tori, expecting at least a flicker of recognition. She'd listened to me obsess over this idea for months. But instead of speaking up, she leaned forward, wide-eyed. "Sienna, this is genius. You're going to crush it." A cold wave passed over me. Tori had chosen her side. I tried to smile. Pretend. Numb. But my chest was tight, my throat locked. My father pulled Sienna into a hug, practically glowing with pride. "You make us proud, sweetheart," he said. My mother followed with, "This is what real ambition looks like." Every word chipped away at something inside me. Sienna met my gaze from across the room. For just a second she smirked. A silent confession that she knew exactly what she had done, and that no one here would stop her. I excused myself to the kitchen. I didn't cry. I couldn't. But my hands shook as I gripped the counter, trying to breathe. From behind a cloud. "Grandma Elsie." She entered the kitchen holding a small, sealed envelope. Her eyes were sharp, her mouth set with the kind of calm strength you only earn after a lifetime of disappointments. She didn't say much. Just placed the envelope into my hand and whispered, "For your business." Later that night, I opened it alone in my apartment. Inside was a handwritten note and a check for $1,000. Money she'd saved from selling quilts at the church bazaar. It wasn't much compared to Sienna's funding, but it was everything. Because it came from belief. That night, while my parents toasted Sienna's future and the world applauded her stolen dream, I sat in silence with Elsie's note pressed to my chest like a shield. She saw me before anyone else ever did. Before anyone else dared to. I promised myself I'd make it count. Not for revenge. Not even to prove them wrong. But because someone finally said yes when the rest of the world only said no. And I knew in my bones, I was going to make Verdant rise real. After that night, I poured everything into Verdant Rise. Every waking hour became a building block. Researching, testing, packing, learning. I took double shifts at the market, worked weekends at a local coffee shop, and lived off peanut butter sandwiches and tap water. Sleep became optional. Growth wasn't. And then came a turning point. His name was Eli Ramos, 27, whip-smart and obsessed with logistics. We worked together at Willow and Time, and I'd noticed how he could map out delivery routes like a chess master. I showed him my plan, expecting a polite nod. Instead, he pulled out his laptop. "This could work," he said. "If we optimize the zones and stagger pickups. Yeah, we could build this." From that night on, we were a team. Break room meetings turned into midnight brainstorms. We set up a bare-bones website, contacted farmers, bought shipping boxes from liquidation warehouses, and borrowed a neighbor's rusted-out van for our first deliveries. Then Dana, my manager, introduced us to Marla Jensen, owner of a small health shop downtown. She agreed to a trial run. Eli and I packed the crates by hand, carrots, apples, fresh spinach, delivered them ourselves, praying they'd sell. 1 week later, Marla called. "We need more. People love it." That call changed everything. Marla's customers weren't just buying, they were raving. They loved the freshness, the handwritten notes we tucked inside each box, the feeling that this wasn't just food, it was care. Eli and I celebrated in the backroom of Willow and Time with cold coffee and fist bumps. It wasn't glamorous. but it was ours. As word spread, we added 2 more local farms, updated the website and opened pre-orders for home delivery. Orders trickled in slowly at first, but every crate packed felt like a seed we were planting, each one a promise. Meanwhile, Noor Halcyon launched with flashing cameras and champagne flutes. Sienna held a rooftop gala in the city, with influencers and press swarming the venue. I wasn't invited. But Tori texted me a photo of Sienna in a sequined gown captioned, "She's killing it." I didn't respond. Rumors soon followed. A vendor at the market mentioned delayed payments from Sienna's team. Another whispered about botched shipments, missing items and unhappy clients. First I ignored it. Focused on our small wins. Marla doubling her weekly order, emails from customers asking if we could expand. But quietly I felt it. Her empire was built on my blueprint. And it was starting to crack. I didn't have time to gloat. Verdant Rise was still fragile, barely standing on its own legs. Eli and I were pulling 16-hour days. I'd start my mornings loading crates, spend afternoons meeting with farmers and work on the website long into the night. I lived simply. My apartment had no furniture except a mattress on the floor and a folding table for my laptop. I wore the same jeans every day. Ate instant noodles. Skipped birthdays, parties, weekends. But it was working. Marla's success led to another partnership. Then another. People were talking. Sharing photos of their produced boxes. Leaving glowing reviews online. Sienna's name kept surfacing though. At a local business mixer, a vendor I knew pulled me aside. "Your sister's brand? Bleeding cash," he said. "She's months behind on payments. Might be going under." I nodded, kept my face neutral. But inside I felt a twisted mix of vindication and sorrow. She'd stolen the idea, dressed it up in luxury packaging and fumbled it. But I wasn't focused on her anymore. We were too busy growing something real. Something honest. When Marla tripled her order, Eli high-fived me in the parking lot and said, "This is just the beginning." And I believed him. Fall came with both a chill and a shift. Word reached me through a supplier at the farmer's market. Noor Halcyon was imploding. Sienna hadn't paid her silk vendor in months. Pop-up boutiques that once had lines around the block were now empty. On social media, the cracks showed. Customers complaining about late shipments, defective products, unanswered emails. One evening my dad called. His voice was low, unfamiliar. "We might have to sell the lake house," he said. I could hear my mother in the background, her tone sharp, muttering about downsizing. They had bet everything on Sienna. Now they were drowning in her failure. I should have felt something. Maybe guilt. Maybe pity. But I didn't. Because while they were watching their golden child's dream fall apart, Verdant Rise was soaring. A regional supermarket chain, Hearth and Harvest, reached out after a customer recommended us. They wanted our produce boxes in 10 stores across the state. I stared at the contract, my hand trembling. It was worth millions. We signed it sitting cross-legged in the warehouse, surrounded by crates and invoices. Eli grinned wide and real. "We did it, Lena. We're legit now. We'd done it without them. And that made it even sweeter." We celebrated with lukewarm coffee and a dented box of bakery donuts. It wasn't champagne, but it tasted better than any toast at Sienna's launch ever could. But success brings shadows. A few weeks after signing the Hearth and Harvest deal, I started noticing strange reviews on our site. 1-star ratings. Claims that our produce was moldy, overpriced, unwashed. They didn't match our actual orders. There were no complaints from real customers, no returns, no emails. Just anonymous slander. Something felt off. Eli dug into the backend and spotted it. The accounts posting the reviews had no order history. They were brand new, all created within days of each other. Bots? Maybe. But then I got pulled aside at a local vendor expo. A fellow business owner, someone I'd trusted, whispered, "Your sister's been going around saying Verdant Rise is a fraud. That you lie about your sourcing." It hit like a slap. Sienna was behind the fake reviews. And worse, Tori was with her. The same friend who once listened to my pitch over coffee was now echoing Sienna's lies, telling vendors that my boxes were second-rate. They couldn't beat me with business, so they tried to poison my name. I was livid, but I didn't retaliate with rumors. I fought with proof. That night Eli and I stayed up crafting a response. Not a tweet. Not a statement. A video. We filmed a full walkthrough of the Verdant Rise warehouse. Crisp greens being sorted. Carrots still dusted with fresh soil. Our team, laughing, sweating, working hard. We showed our cold storage, our labeling system, our list of verified local farms with certifications. We didn't hide anything. Let them see the truth, I said, hitting upload. The response was instant. Messages flooded in from customers. Some new, many loyal. Thank you for showing us behind the scenes. This is why I trust Verdant Rise. Supporting you now more than ever. Even Hearth and Harvest doubled their order, citing our transparency as industry-leading. The fake reviews. They vanished under the flood of genuine support. But karma didn't forget. A regional blog ran a story on Noir Halcyon's collapse, highlighting unpaid suppliers, damaged inventory, and a long list of refund demands. Worse still, Tori's co-op lost its largest client after her role in the smear campaign surfaced. I didn't celebrate, but I slept better that night than I had in months. Truth had done the talking. But my family? They didn't disappear quietly. A voicemail landed in my inbox days later. My mother's voice, sharp and entitled. Lena, your sister's business didn't work out, but yours is doing fine. It's time you help us. We're family. I didn't call back. I was done carrying their regrets. Verdant Rise was built on scraped knees and sleepless nights. Not handouts. Not privilege. Certainly not them. But they weren't finished. That spring, I invited a small group to our new Raleigh office for an Easter dinner. A soft celebration with Eli, our team, and yes, my family. I was trying. Hoping we could find some neutral ground now that the dust had settled. The office wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Wooden shelves lined with produce hand-painted signs, a big table set for dinner. It smelled like rosemary and roasted garlic. They arrived late. My parents walked in with Sienna, who looked like she'd been carved from glass. Expensive but brittle. My mother scanned the room like she was auditing it. My father gave a tight-lipped smile. Sienna trailed behind, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood. They didn't come to celebrate. They came to reclaim something they never built. Dinner began quietly. Small talk. Awkward laughs. Mentions of Grandma Elsie's tulips and the weather. I tried to stay calm to keep the peace for her. But then my father cleared his throat and set his fork down with purpose. Lena, he said loud enough for the whole room to hear, this company, Verdant Rise, it's a family achievement. We've all made sacrifices. I blinked. The words didn't even make sense. My mother added, we're just so proud of everything we've built together. Together? Sienna leaned forward, her tone honeyed. Yes, it's amazing how far we've all come. Eli shot me a glance. He saw it too. The trap being laid in plain sight. Then came the blow. We think it's only fair we get a share, my mother said. This business is a family legacy after all. My stomach turned. I set my fork down carefully. My voice didn't tremble. You didn't invest a cent. You called it a phase. A hobby. My dad's jaw tightened. That's not how we remember it. Sienna's smile faded into something colder. You wouldn't be here without us pushing you. I stood. I'd been quiet for too long. Pushing me. I said, voice steady as steel. You mean ignoring me? Undermining me? Funding Sienna's stolen idea while telling me to get a real job? I turned to face them all. You gave her everything. $100,000, your faith, your pride. I built Verdant Rise on rejection, on silence, on grit. And now that it's thriving, you want in. The room froze. Sienna's eyes flared. You're just jealous, she snapped. You always have been. I turned to our staff, our team who'd built this dream with me, and said it clearly. They called my ideas childish. Laughed at my plans. Now they want my success. But this, I gestured around us, this is mine. Then I faced Tori, who had the audacity to show up at my table after slandering my name. And you, I said, spread lies about the produce. About me. I trusted you. A silence fell. One of our team members, who had overheard Tori at a vendor expo, nodded in quiet confirmation. Tori stammered. I was just trying to help Sienna. Enough, Grandma Elsie said, rising slowly but firmly. Lena built this with nothing but willpower and honesty. She owes you nothing. That night I opened the family group chat. Typed 3 letters. Bye. hit send, and I was free.